Hello, and welcome to Crocheting with the Classics. Today, we're going to be talking about the two methods for working in the round. So, first off, we have to start a round. And since this is a Classics channel, we're going to do it the Victorian way. So, instead of a magic circle, what they would use, just like I talked about on my video last week, is a set of 4 chains. So, there's my chain 4. And then they would slip stitch right at the base and bring it together. And then they have a little circle to work into. So let's say I wanted to do a 9 double crochet round. So I'd chain 2, and then I would insert here, pull through, make my double crochets, always inserting into that center part. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And you notice I'm working over the tail. That just hides it better. And normally I would just snip it right here, but I'm just going to leave it alone for the moment. I reuse this yarn a lot. It gets frogged. Anyway, so here we've got a choice to make. Now, I can do a slip stitch together and start each new row like that. But this leaves a seam. And that seam can get pretty easy to see. Now, the Victorians would do it this way. But if you're doing something like amigurumi, where you don't want seams, you would do it in a spiral. So let's see what the seam looks like first. So I'm going to show you. I'm going to slip stitch. Here's my first chain. Here's my second chain. I'm going to slip stitch right here. Do-do-do. That's Daisy growling. She doesn't like my singing. Do-do-do. I'm going to do it anyway. There we go. Yeah, you're grumpy. All right. So I've slip stitched together. Now, for the second round, there's always a pattern. You would do 2 DC in each of these, going around. And then the round after that, you do 1 DC in one, 2 DC in the next. The round after that, 2 DC, and then 2 DC in the next one. Round after that, 3 DC, 2 DC in the next one. It's just a pattern of increases to make circles. And that's basically standard. Otherwise, your circle curls up on you. All right, so there's my slip stitch together. And then I would chain 2 and do my 2 DCs. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Now I'm just messing with Daisy at this point. But you notice, as I'm going around, the circle does want to curl on me. And that's okay. Daisy, are you being naughty? Yeah, she's having a grumpy day. And that's okay because she's a Chihuahua. So every day's a grumpy day. It is too. Anyway, as patterns go, pretty simple. So, almost done, and then once we slip stitch together, you'll be able to see the seam. kind of like one of those old-fashioned pantyhose. You know how you'd have a seam running up your leg? As I understand it, back during the World War II, when they couldn't get pantyhose, they would stain their legs, and then they would draw up the back of the leg with an eyebrow pencil, so it looked like they were wearing them. Modesty's a funny thing, but that's okay. Should you ever be trying to do a World War II costume, maybe think about that. Alright, so here we are back at the end loop, and see the little space here? That very last one, that's where you slip stitch together, and you don't put anything in that. Unless the pattern specifically tells you to. No. Now, we're going to slip stitch together again. So, here we go. Slip stitching together. And here, you can see the seam. That bar and that bar. And that seam, if you choose the seam method, is going to go all the way up your pattern. But, let's say you're doing a spiral. Okay, so we're going to take this out. We're going to go back to our little slip stitch and take it out. And instead, we're going to do the spiral method. So, we're going to go over, and instead, we are going to double crochet directly into this next part. And this is going to feel awkward at first, because it kind of is. And that's okay. Once you get all the way around, this is going to squish together, and there's not going to be a gap. And it's going to be a lot easier on the following rounds. So, we're going to go around again. Now, the problem with the spiral method is that it doesn't leave a trace. So if you're trying to do in exact rounds, and you might have to change up between rounds, it is very important to mark your stitches and count your stitches. If you lose count, you are going to regret it later, and your pattern's going to look all wonky. Because at some point, someone's going to bark, the phone's going to ring, coffee's going to spill, and you're going to lose count. So, mark the stitches somewhere, somehow. The only reason I'm not bothering to do it on this is because I'm just doing a little bitty thing. So, here we are coming around again. But I would say that the inconvenience of having to mark your stitches is absolutely 100% worth it, because you don't have to, well, you don't have to look at a seam at the end of it. And those seams can get very annoying. Now, here we are back at the boundary on this first one. And you notice we've got a long thing here, and then the flat top here. We're going into the flat top part. But it's a lot closer together this time, which is good. So, just like for the second row, as we said, 1, and then 2. And eventually, you don't have a seam anymore that you can see. And you just keep going around and around and around. Because if you look, when you get back to this part again, that little long thing that was there, that's gone. By the third round, you got clear run all the way through. So, once again, mark your stitches. All right, so that's it for this tutorial. I hope that was helpful, and have a lovely afternoon. Goodbye.